All right, well, it's 6:02, so I know Doug is not here, but we have a quorum of board members, so I feel we should get started because we got a lot of things to go over tonight. So it's 6:02. Let's open the hearing here. Good evening, everyone. Chris Senecal, Chairman of the HPDD Review Board.
Let's continue the hearing.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Green. Yeah, this is a continuance of the hearing for Harbor Classic Homes and for their proposed 55 and over community at the Rutland Heights property. Going into the agenda at this time, I'd just like to have the board review the meeting minutes from the February 24th meeting. Review those, and if there's any questions or discussion about changes, we can discuss that. I've reviewed them, and I don't have any comments or questions, so I'll just leave it open to you board members if you have anything.
Yep. I've reviewed them and I'm all set.
Motion to accept.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
No. So that was Dick Williams made the motion, Tamika, and Michelle seconded.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Michelle. And there's no discussion. So all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Yes.
Dick Williams, aye.
Purrington, aye.
Van Ree, aye.
Chris Senecal, aye. And Doug Briggs is not present.
Right.
Okay. So the ayes have it. The meeting minutes from February 24th are accepted. Moving along here. The public hearing for the Harbor Classic concept plan review for the proposed 55 and over community at the Rutland Heights property. Just want to do a few things here. Got my notes. One quick item I want to bring up. I'm not sure if I might just pause on it. If Mr. Right briefly after the meeting, one of the abutters, Tim Stalmick, if I say his name correctly, to the board, but I don't see him on the hearing right now. Is he? Peter, do you see that gentleman here? All right, so
no, he's not.
Thank you. We'll review his. We'll review that after.
Okay.
Just want to go over that briefly, just to tie up some loose ends with him. So first off, here, I think we should just discuss the fact that the solar, abutting the solar community, the proposed solar plan project is been now. They've backed out. Is that correct? Dave George, they are officially out. Is that correct?
It's my understanding that they are out. However, I haven't received any documentation to that effect. I'm not sure if Mike Sullivan has any more knowledge of that. If so, I would ask him, since he's also part of this meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Mike, you got anything official from them yet?
I don't have anything in writing, but I did have a conference call with them on Friday, and it does appear as though they're out. They're asking us for some leniency in regards to their contract, which is not going to affect this project. So the answer to your question is, at the moment, let's not worry about solar.
Okay, so that's just a housekeeping item that you and the RDIC board will close up. But for all intent and purposes, this hearing can move forward with them being, off the plan here, so to speak.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
Let me put it, excuse me, Chris, let me just put it to you this way. They're asking us to work with them, and I told them straight up, the bird in the hand is better than the one in the bush. And right now we're proceeding with the over 55 project as our priority. And if there's a way we can, if there's a way the solar revitalizes itself and we can work it in, fine. If we can't, sorry.
All right, terrific. And just to give everybody a little bit of background, there were about 12 to 14 solar projects that had been on the books into National Grid for the town of Rutland. Approximately, 3 to 6 months ago, National Grid said every solar project would have to pay approximately $1.2 million for upgrades of the substation transmission lines for any more solar in Rutland. Immediately, about 10 to 12 of those guys pulled right out. I believe the one that was up there at the Heights hung in there the longest. But it's really just doesn't make this feasible. And the reason why I want to bring this up is that I really think as a review board and also as a town planner, the town manager, the RDIC board, at this time, solar is just such a far away option. And I really want to document this really well to me because, you know, in 3 to 5 years from now, people could question, why didn't we leave room for solar? And I just want to have a very brief discussion with this board and any of the town people in this hearing right now. Is there any reason to even think about leaving land there? I mean, the fact that solar is going to be so far away, I agree with what Mike just said, that we just move forward with this over 55 and allow them to utilize that property if it benefits them in this town to make an agreement that's very productive for both of us. And really it might just, you know, the solar deal was a pretty good deal for the town. Let's face it. Financially, it was going to be pretty good. But I just don't personally, I mean, I'm doing solar all the time. That's what I do. Partially, it's 20% of my business. I just don't see it happening in Rutland in the next 5 to 10 years. I just don't even see it feasible. And at least something of that magnitude. So with that being said, I just want to open that discussion up. If anybody feels differently or feels that we should keep a portion of the property for potential future solar up there.
I think we should keep part of that property, not necessarily for solar, but for something else. This thing here was thrown in our lap while the town center review board was going through town trying to find different areas of what to do for the future. And then all of a sudden this thing got tossed in there. And there were things that were going to happen. And I tell you, I am not pleased at how this is going about, period. You know, communication.
Let me just ask you a question right now. Let me just ask you a question because I'm a little confused on what you said. I'm specifically talking about the portion of land, that solar area that they were going to use, which was that hill. I'm not talking about, you know, zone B.
No, we were,
like that.
yeah, I know it. We were talking about, you know, putting other things down there, and then all of a sudden this thing got thrown in there. You know, to me, it was just a lack of communications in this freaking town, period. But what is there, to me, should be saved for future, not just, you know, don't give them the whole freaking thing. Yes, give them some of it, but not the whole freaking property. All right, amen. I'm done. I got to calm down because I'm starting to get my blood boiling.
Okay, anybody else have any comments? Anybody have an opinion one way or the other, which way we should go?
Yeah, question.
I'll need the money.
How much of the solar project did this residential project move on to in acres or square feet?
Again, just this preliminary plan that they put together, when I compare the two, you know, I'm just kind of hip shooting here, but I mean, I would say probably, well, they got the basin that they're gonna have to put the potential basin that's there. They might have consumed maybe 40 to 50% of that, and that's just a rough estimate from my looking at the plans. But they also, the access to it with this revised plan would be pretty limited, but I still think there's access to get to it. You'd have to create a little bit more of just extend the roadway out beyond and get on the hill. You know?
Yeah, when we have the plan up, I'll ask the question again.
I have a quick question. The plan that we got tonight has more housing on it than the last plan that we saw. Is that correct?
Correct. There are 126, I believe, units proposed on this plan compared to the 88 that was on the previous plan.
So, and I'm counting
Excuse me,
11
hold on.
down at the bottom, and they didn't address the exit out onto Maple Avenue issue.
Okay, hold on. Before we get into dissecting this plan, because we're not even there yet.
No,
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say with 11 units at the bottom of the hill, I'm wondering if we remove those and just did at the top, would that fit with what Dick was talking about? And do all of the housing at the top of the hill? Or am I getting too far ahead?
Um, you know, it's a valid opinion, and I'm not trying to say where or what how we can have a discussion about where the houses should go. I just want to get a general feedback if there's concern. Even it sounds like, I mean, Dick certainly has a concern about leaving room for solar. I just want to know if that's a concern for everybody on this board in this town, or to what level we want to do it. I mean, we can talk about this plan's too much and the traffic and all that, and I want to get into that plan. I'm just trying to keep things reeled in here a little bit from just unraveling and going off. That's all.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I think there's more. Dick, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it more than just solar that you're worried about?
Correct.
And I think he's worried about like other development, like specifically if we want to put like businesses or retail up there or town buildings.
That's correct. The town does not have a lot of property that they own.
But then I guess on the other side of that coin, Dick, the town hasn't said anything about using any of this property for that. So that's where I'm kind of in a quandary. Because
That's because what I just said, because of lack of communications. They had a big joint meeting a year and a half ago or something like that, and it surprised even Nick, Mike Nicholson, the TA at the time, that we talked about maybe a brand new town hall, where to put it. The height had come up. So, to me, for crying out loud, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I think Mike Sullivan is trying to speak, but he's muted.
Mike, unmute yourself.
When your committee's done, I'd like to just make a comment.
Any other? Go ahead, Mike. And no one else is.
Well, when the solar kind of collapsed, which was last Friday, I attempted to schedule a meeting of our committee before this meeting, because it seemed apparent to me from a town standpoint, after listening to the last public hearing, that there were some concerns by the abutters, both the private homeowners and the business, about the property in zones, the buildings being built in Zone C, that there was gonna be issues there. So I spoke with Laurel, who I see is on our meeting, and I suggested to her that, speaking as an individual, because I could not speak as our committee, that I thought, since the solar project was dying on the vine, it would behoove them to look at putting their entire 88 unit project on parcel A, so that it would do a whole bunch of things. It would eliminate, and I don't mean to use names, but it's just easier, Mark Mosio's concern of noise and so on. And I don't remember the two gentlemen's name on Christmas Tree Lane, but those two folks worried about, the change in their environment. Number one. Number two was it would eliminate the second exit coming out onto Maple Avenue, which we discussed at our last meeting. So I suggested to Laurel that she go back to her group, and I explained to her very clearly that this was my opinion and not the opinion of the board. That she go back and I thought, not only from the town standpoint, but I thought from Harbor Classic Homes standpoint, it would make a much better project, because it would give them the sewage flows, the water looping, the roadways, all those things that we discussed. In addition to that, I raised the issue at our last meeting about a quote unquote community center, clubhouse, whatever you want to call it. And again, if given the fact that they could now expand into the solar area, they could spread themselves out and perhaps find a place if they chose to do that. And Laurel, I don't mean to speak for you, but I think you've gone and done some research, and it appears as though you agree that most projects of this magnitude do have community center slash clubhouses. So that's the way I left it with them. Now, I again, I want to make it clear that I was not speaking as the RDIC. I was only speaking as an individual.
Yeah.
We have a meeting tomorrow night. Was as soon as I could do it. Unfortunately, I tried to do it before yours, where I intend to, address this with our committee. But it just seems logical to me that if we can, I think from Harbor Classic Homes standpoint, it gives them a better project all in one site rather than spreading it out. And certainly in the town's interest, it makes a lot of sense to preserve zones B and C for other uses. So, okay, with that, I'm done. Until someone asks another question.
All right, Mike, thanks. Thanks. Anybody have any comment on that? Go ahead, Jim. Jim, I see-
Yeah, in general, agree with what Mike says, and what we're presented with is a project that's 50% bigger and still has, is still using the zones down by the road. So I think that's what I'm seeing, and I'm not, I'm a little bit surprised at that. I really think at this point we should continue the hearing until something else comes in.
Okay.
This is a preliminary thing, and it's half-baked, my opinion. Thank you.
So do you agree with the quantity? Are you saying you don't like the quantity? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think what Mike said was move what was down by the road up onto the hill.
Yeah, okay.
And what I did is,
You're in favor of preserving zones B and C.
in general, if the project would work without it,
Yeah.
and the the petitioners came back with something that's 50% bigger instead of freeing up that land by the road.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, I mean, from what Mike said, I think that's something that he would like to develop, that his committee would like to develop that concept more with the developer. And
Again, Mr. Chairman, Jim, I just want to, and I know you're not trying to put words in my mouth. I just want to be clear. That's my personal opinion. And until we meet tomorrow, I can't speak for my committee. I'm just telling you that, in my opinion, that would make a better project for both HCH and for the town.
Michelle, Dick, do you guys agree with Mike's opinion as far as moving this up all to zone A?
Yes,
And preserving zone C and B?
yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay. And I don't think anybody can argue with that. I think, when you talk about the interest of the town and keeping in with the reuse, this new plan certainly envelops a lot of real estate here. And that is certainly a concern of mine. I got no quandary about stating that, that the parcel of zone A that's left available is a very steep slope. So other than solar, I don't even know what you'd put back on the backside of that hill. It's not like you're going to develop it for anything else, for industry or, a field or a park or anything, town property. So that back area is, when you look at the property as what's usable, and even in the last meeting, I was almost going to ask Peter Crane about how much of zone B is actually useful land area. And, sometimes I feel like when we start to talk about this, we're kind of overstepping our bounds as a review board, but I guess it's all part of it because we're just trying to figure out where we're going to put this. You would think that discussion would already been kind of, like how much of the land area, usable land area, are they consuming right now? And when I see this, it looks about 75 to 80% of it. So Dick, I hear your concerns. I certainly do. And I think that's something I'd like to hear from Peter Cambasso right now about, can you, Peter Cambasso, reduce the project and keep it all up on that Zone A parcel? And if you're gonna have a community building, could that go up on that parcel? And is that something you guys would be interested in looking at?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the board and others present. I think that that's how we anticipated the conversation would go tonight. But if I could just make a quick point, just for to keep in perspective. I think if you look through the Rutland Heights Reuse Master Plan, within that document, they specify based on the 3 areas. Now, the parcel itself is approximately 87, 88 acres. The master reuse plan specifically states there's probably about 17 acres of usable land in Zone A. There's about 10 acres of usable land in Zone B, and there's about 5 acres of usable land in Zone C. So for the overall site, even though it's an 88 acre parcel of land, the actual usable land is much, much less. So with that in mind, Harbor Classic's intention obviously is to propose a 55 and older senior housing. That was one of the primary uses that the reuse plan focused on, that thought or that intimated that it was probably the most viable or most practical use of the land. They talked about industrial uses, they talked about retail uses, they talked about a lot of things. But if you really read through the report, you'll see that probably what makes the most sense is an over 55 development, which is what we're proposing.
And Peter, to your point, one thing I do want to point out to everybody, not only are you correct, but they actually specify Zone C, the area in which we're talking about pulling you out of.
Correct.
The number 1 area for this.
Correct.
As we, and again, I'm not trying to be the devil's advocate here or anything to the rest of the board members, but this is the master plan, the reuse master plan, and they said that area is where it should go, first and foremost. But anyways, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, excuse me, let me just jump in there, but DEP stepped in and says no sewer is supposed to be added where it is not now. Peter Crane put that on the map, which shocked the hell out of everybody. And this should also to the HCH, for crying out loud. That's something that nobody knew about.
So with these issues in mind, obviously moving forward with some type of a proposal on the site, we have to take these issues into consideration to make sure that what we propose is viable. Now, as far as the actual plan, the revised concept plan that you're looking at, I do acknowledge that the units down below do still appear on the plan. There was some discussion about possibly removing the units, looking into some type of a community center, clubhouse, something along those lines. We have not had sufficient time to really wrap our hands around that just as of yet. But the notion itself of moving the units to the upper area in the Zone A, if you will, does make a lot of sense. If that's something that the town is the most pleased with, then yes, we would definitely want to pursue that. Now, the reason we're showing some additional units is Harbor Classic Homes wants to keep the possibility of, putting something on Zone C, whether it be houses or some other type of use that we can discuss with the town. That's why we would like to somehow incorporate zones C and zones A into the same type of ultimate site plan that comes before the board. Whether it's strictly senior housing, whether it's a mix of senior housing with a clubhouse. There are some amenities that we can include, such as, walking trails, community garden was something that the plan talked about. So there are things in there. From our perspective, from a development standpoint, it's probably very unlikely that any type of industrial use is going to go on this site. With that said, it probably makes sense to move the housing up to the hill. A lot of the area that was consumed by the expanded lot 1, as Chairman Senical mentioned, the topography is such that it's very hilly, very unlikely that the land is going to be used. However, from a design standpoint, we have to be cognizant of land area so we can meet our density requirements to get the number of units that will make the project economically viable. So that's sort of, I was more concerned about dealing with the A&R plan to establish the lots or the building envelopes, if you will. And by addressing the A&R plan, I think what we've done, as I did review the minutes, one of the big concerns from the last meeting was the 3-foot strip from the end of Rutland Heights Drive to the boundary that is the school parking lot or what have you. We revised the plan to connect and leave that 3-foot section open so that it would remain with the town or with the RDIC. And if the town ever needed it, the town could somehow acquire it from the RDIC. So that was one of the issues that I thought we needed to address tonight. So the revised plan does show that. And then more importantly, because we're creating lots, essentially we're creating 3 lots with this A&R plan, which conveniently would fall into the zones A, B, and C. But more importantly, with Rutland Heights Way, each lot is going to have the adequate frontage on a public way that it needs for access purposes. So we won't be using strictly Maple Ave as the access. And to Member Van Riet's point, correct. Unfortunately, we did not have enough time to amend that plan to remove that road cut from going on to Maple Ave to have those 2 road cuts, but that will ultimately go away in the actual site plan. So I was hoping that with the A&R plan, at least establishing the 3 lots, we would be able to address some of the primary concerns that were brought up at the last meeting. And I think that by doing it this way, it does. And if I just would like either confirmation or some feedback that that's a satisfactory response to the board. As far as the plan is concerned, the A&R plan.
Yeah, Peter, I agree. Determining the lots is key, absolutely key here before you can move forward, or this project or any project up here is going to move forward. I think the town, it's in the town's best interest to maintain that 3-foot piece of roadway that was not, that little strip of 3.5 feet of roadway. I think it's in the best interest of the town to keep that. Some discussions that we've had behind the scenes, like that's the way they want that to go. So I think keeping that isolated for the town to keep that under their ownership is the way we want to proceed. Okay. If anybody has any comments regarding that, I'd like to hear that right now. But as far as that 3-foot strip, we're feeling like the town wants to maintain that. Anybody have any question about that? As far as the board or any other town members?
Mr. Chair, I see Tim Narwhal has his hand up, and he's had it up since Mr. Campabassa was speaking, so I'm not sure what his topic is.
All right, Tim, go ahead.
Chris, all I was going to suggest is some of the people on this meeting didn't have that drawing that everybody's talking about. Is there any chance Peter could put that up, the latest drawing so we can see what they're talking about?
Yeah, Peter, could you do that for them?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to let you know, I did send it out to everybody on the RDIC and the HPDD this afternoon. So I'm not sure if you checked your email, but if it's not there, I'll resend it.
Holy Toledo, I didn't see this.
Yep, I sent it out this afternoon, Dick.
Well, I didn't get in here till the meeting, so.
This is what we've been talking about.
Oh my freak. Oh, Chihuahua.
So this,
Now you're cooking. This is in the back of my mind how I kind of figured it should have been.
so you,
I've done enough mowing up there, brush hogging and everything else. And to me, how you got this thing set up right now, you're spot on.
So I think just to follow up on, I believe it was Mr. Norwell asking the question. This actually has two plans. This is a revised concept plan, but one of the sheets that is also accompanying here is a revised A&R plan, which shows the 3 separate lots. There you go.
thank you, Peter.
So, and on this plan, it does show in that little bump out how the 3-foot strip is separated so that that's no longer an issue. That can retain with the town.
In essence, that's the 4th lot, if you even will, Peter.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, that the town could just take ownership of, and then that becomes, you know.
Well, it's broken out as partial A on the plan, on the proposed plan.
Yes, yeah, on your proposed plan, yeah. Okay, so,
Thank you.
yep, thank you. Okay. So I think it's obvious tonight that everybody feels this project should be located up on this lot 2. Keeping lots 1 and lots 3 available for future potential retail type development or town use development. In the lot 2, which represents zones A in the master use plan, was specified to be used for industry. And I just want to have this conversation with everybody. We've been trying to get industry up there for about 15 years, and we just haven't had a sniff of it. And I got no problem making this, you know, when you look at the reuse plan, again, lot 1 was supposed to be that zone C was, you know, they preferred that to be the residential side of it, the elderly housing side of it. And then, you know, the lot 2, that upper level, the top of the hill would be the industry. So I have no problem kind of, and the reuse plan does say you can, you know, maneuver things as need be, as the town requires and as time changes. And I think times have changed, and we understand we're not getting, you know, an industrial park here. It's just not happening. And I have absolutely no issue with using lot 2 for that purpose, that upper level, that zone, you know, zone A, if you will, for the community housing, maintaining the other zones B and C, which he has in his plan as lot 1 and 2 for future open use. Does anybody have any comments on that as far as that goes?
Chris, to give you a little bit of a background, to jump off of your comment, we've got a request in the planning board now to have one of our industrial areas be rezoned to a TC or a business area. So that just backs up what you just said. We're eliminating industrial areas in Rutland because they're just not viable.
Yeah, it's really, you know, and even from a large retail scale, I mean, a good friend of mine, Miles Cambridge, he runs development for all the Hannaford supermarkets, and he builds those malls that, you know, Hannaford's the main anchor, and then they bring in all the other small stores. I mean, years back, 10, 15 years ago, I had him come up here and look at it. It's just the town doesn't have the numbers. No, we're not even close to having the numbers of something that large, which something that big would have to go in that spot. Even changing it from an industrial type use to a large retail type complex, Rutland doesn't have the daytime numbers. You can't even get a McDonald's in here because you don't have the noontime numbers. You know, those places need that noontime traffic, and we just don't have that here in town. It's not a Route 9, you know, in Shrewsbury. So again, with that being said, my opinion, and I have no issue with, you know, with the over 55 being up on the hill. I think it helps out, you know. Dick, you know, to your point, I mean, I don't know what, what the future of the other lots will be. I know we've always talked about property for land and things like that, but at some point too, I think we have to realize something has to come of this property. We can't just say we got to hold on for the future, hold on for the future. 'Cause, we have been holding on for 15 years plus and nothing's come to fruition. So, we put myself personally, I tried to put a park in that zone, that lot 2, the zone B. I mean, I had $100,000 grant raised. We went to the select board, they shot it down. I went and got the 300 or whatever 100 signatures I needed to get on the warrant, and we were handedly voted down. The town people did not want a $300,000 to make that whole zone B, which he has as lot, it would be lot 2. I'm sorry, lot 3, as a park to make, ball fields and things like that, and parkways and tennis courts or whatever. So, I don't know what the town's going to use this for, to be honest with you. I don't know if the town has any sense of what side's up or down sometimes. And I echo your frustration a little bit. There's certainly a lack of leadership, in my opinion, to where the town's going in general. But I think right now, we have something here in front of us that can benefit the town and make use of this property, which is why the town purchased this in the first place. To help out the town, but also to bring in some tax revenue and industry if we could. But, let's face it, like we talked about. So, all right. So anyways, where are we now? So lot 2, it seems like everybody likes that, Peter.
Mr. Chairman,
Go
I like
ahead.
it condensed like that.
I'm sorry?
I like it condensed, all of it together.
Yeah, I agree. I would potentially like, Peter Campobasso, like a second egress, maybe out of the bottom corner, tying into that other lower road where the solar was going to be, or some type of second entrance and egress to it. I know that's 126 units total, less the 22. That upper parcel is about 102 units. And personally, in my opinion, I'd like to see the community building up in that zone, not down in the lower lot 1 personally. I'd like to see it up in that upper area. Does any of the board or town members have an opinion about where that community building would be located and where they feel would be best located?
Near the flagpole.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
Mike Sullivan here. Just a couple of points in regards to the senior housing going up on top. Just from a historic standpoint, this is Attorney Campobasso will get a kick out of me playing attorney here. But this is I think, 3rd or 4th iteration of the RFP. And the last one we did, we specifically wrote it in a manner that basically said, we've got 80 acres here. Tell us what you want to do with it. So we didn't care that it once was industrial and it once was recreation or whatever. So I think we're dead on with the fact that senior housing is going to go up to the top. That's exactly what we wrote in the last RFP. I guess I'll ask a simple question, and someone from HCH can probably answer this. I think I counted 11 units down on your lot 1. If you were to eliminate those, how many?
There's 11, excuse me, Mike. There's 11 buildings, but 22 units.
Okay, 11 buildings. Sorry, didn't say it correctly. Originally, how many buildings were on your, I can't see here.
It's always been 11 on the plan.
How many units how many buildings have you added to the top by the solar going away? Does anybody know that? I mean, we can count them.
8 buildings. I believe they added 8 buildings. There's a difference of 16 buildings, I believe, 16 units, I believe, were added up on top of the hill.
Okay, so I guess
no, more than that. 16. He's got 126.
I believe there's 126 units total
And that's 60
on lot 2, Mr. Chairman. And I think there's 11 buildings that still remain down below.
Okay, so that's 22 units down below.
22 units, 11 buildings, yes.
Okay, so if we subtracted those 22 units
It's
from
126. Hold on a second. It's 126 total between the two.
okay,
start at 23 up there by the top, by that 3.5-foot stretch. And I don't see any units 1. So 1 through 22 are down by Maple Street, and then 23 to 126 are up on the hill. That's what I see on this plan.
Right. Mr. Chairman, Trent Oldfield.
Okay, so originally.
Hold on, Mike. Ken,
Sorry,
you got a
sorry.
comment there?
I think what Dick is trying to get at as in the upper portion, we have 106 buildings there now. We added another 9 buildings up on that hill from before to now.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
So originally there were 88 units, correct?
Correct.
And now there are 122?
126.
126.
Okay, so someone help me with the math. That's what, 40?
38 more units.
Okay, so 38 more units. So if we take away the 22 down at the bottom of the hill, you're still, whatever that number is, 16 or whatever the number is.
16, yep.
More than the original proposal, correct?
Correct.
So, and again, this is a very difficult conversation to have. And you know what? I just realized that the RDIC has a majority of its board in this meeting. So I want to make it crystal clear that any comment that I make, and I would ask anyone else on the RDIC, when they make it, to declare that you're speaking as an individual, not a member of the RDIC. So I'm speaking as an individual, and what I'm, as a taxpayer, and what I'm suggesting is, you know, I understand we have now expanded the total area available to you, but the original proposal was 88 units. So why is it that we can't come back with a proposal of 88 units and potentially a, call it what you want, clubhouse, community center or whatever, and from the conceptual standpoint, so that perhaps we can move forward with the conceptual discussion, and then if as the plan goes to definitive, can we then say, okay, the conceptual plan was 88, but because we have this additional land, we now want to make it whatever the number is, 100, and here's how it's going to look. Is that something we can do, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly kind of where I'm going with this, is that we kind of let them use their, if from a town perspective, that nobody has an issue with them being up on lot 2, and we let them do what's viable for the project, to have some type of community building. And obviously, I'd like to see 2 egresses in and out of something this large personally. I think that in general, however many, if it's 100 units, if it's 88 units, if it's 110 units, I don't think the number to me really matters that much. I think that, if the number goes up, does that affect the cost of the land? I think that would be an issue that the RDIC board would have to work out with the applicant, not part of this review hearing. But I do think that conversation would have to be next, based upon what's viable for them to do what they do up on lot 2.
I would agree with that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Please, Peter, go ahead.
So I think what we're trying to focus on, we are at the concept stage. And it's nice that we're having this much discussion, because it's helpful for both sides, and it's helpful for the applicant. The discussions that we have been part of seem to be, the town obviously has expressed a desire to have more than just senior housing on this site. And if that's the case, the purpose of showing the lot 2 with increased units, we needed to know that there's the possibility for expansion, depending on what goes on lot one, obviously we have to have the ability to have it be incorporated into the project so that it remains financially viable. If there were going to be amenities that would essentially accent the senior housing, then we would have to make sure that building a clubhouse or building a common building or different amenities along those lines could be done, and could be done so where it did not, it was viable for the project, which typically means you're going to need more units to cover some of the expenses that you won't get from sales. The main thing for us tonight is from a conceptual standpoint, if there is consensus that we do want the majority of the housing or the housing on lot 2, it's going to allow Harbor Classic to maneuver between 88 units and something in the vicinity of 120 units to come up with some type of a proposed use for lot 1 that sort of blends into the senior housing, addresses some of the other needs, and might be a little more palatable for the town and for the board. That's really what we're trying to get out of this this evening.
I think one of the concerns about using lot 1 for your project, Peter, is just that the town's really limiting its available land. And that's what I've heard from the other members. And I'm not speaking for the other members. Personally, I think lot 1, it's a good spot for the housing because it abuts other housing. I know the Mozios with the gas station right there, that could be a little bit of an issue. But I think some of the abutters there, the 2 houses, if an industrial building goes in there, I think they're going to wish that it was elderly 2-family housing there rather than, a machine that's running all day, or, a dust collector outside or something of that nature that might not be as friendly to them. It would blend in with Mozios, so I think lot 1's kind of a unique spot. I'm not against, I'm not against keeping it all up in the hill. I really understand that the purpose. Lot 1 is a very valuable, useful piece of land. But again, it's been 15 years and no one's staked their claim there. So I'm kind of on the fence personally about, how much we, let up on lot 1. But
the other, if I may, the other point that I would like to make is, based on the conversations that I have had with David George and some of the feedback that I've received from Laurel with her conversations with Mike Sullivan and has been expressed by some of the members, it would be nice if some type of a retail building could go there. But the reality is it has to be something that is going to attract either tenants or attract businesses that want to set up shop there. And that's something that is probably going to be difficult to do because it doesn't seem that, as you said earlier, the numbers would be there to generate that type of traffic. So it would have to be something, specific or specialty that might complement the senior housing. So that's why it would be, it's obviously in Harbor Classic Homes' best interest to sort of retain some of the use over lot 1 if we can design this correctly and maybe fit something in down there that's acceptable to the town, other than housing units.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yeah, 1 second, Mike.
Yep.
Just to respond to your comment, certainly this board personally, I'd be open to seeing whatever your ideas are, number 1, and certainly want to see them brought to the table here for discussion. I'm not going to make any reference or inference that it should be this or that, or something's acceptable or not acceptable right now without really getting more detail and clarity from you. But I don't see a problem with us, taking a look at your ideas and seeing what you have. Go ahead, Mike.
If I may, to Peter Campobasso. Peter, if your total project was 88 units on the 2 parcels, and you can now fit the 88 units, maybe plus, on the 1 parcel, why would that not be a viable, and I'm not suggesting you said it wasn't, but why would that not be perhaps the best alternative?
In a perfect world, that probably would be the best alternative. Some of the
We live in a perfect world. What's the matter with you?
some of the concerns that we still have, that we have not had an opportunity to really come to terms with, is we do have to do some site work to figure out what is up there and whether or not the land is going to allow some of these buildings that you see on this plan to actually be constructed. We know that based on the prior uses, there's probably still remnants of what existed up on the site before. And depending on what is encountered under the ground, that is going to have a significant impact on whether or not buildings can actually be located, and that number of units can go up there. So that's the difficulty we have right now. In concept, it looks great, yes. But shovel to the ground is usually a different story, and we're anticipating that once we start doing some site investigation, we're going to figure out what is actually able to be done up there.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman, let me say this about that. I can tell you with a high degree of confidence that where you are expanding into on zone, I guess you're calling it zone 1, the top of the hill, is much less, should be and will be much less concerning to you than, well, okay, that's lot 1. What's the top of the hill, lot 2?
Lot 2,
Okay.
zone A.
Where you're expanding to in lot 2 is far cleaner than what you're talking about in lot 1. In lot 1, there were buildings there. We all know that. We know there are partial foundations there. Where you're talking about expanding to in lot 2 is areas where there have never been buildings. Dick, you can probably attest to that even better than I. Dick Williams.
Yes, you're absolutely on the, looking at this map right here, on the left-hand side, all those buildings there, I think will fall in pretty much virgin soil. On the, right in the middle, if I were you, I'd have a backhoe start right from the school and go right down to the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, that right in the middle is where the main building was.
That's
But
right.
down where you've expanded into is, as Dick says, virgin soil. So look, I'm gonna fess up and admit to this, just like you all know. We're all in a very compromised position because the solar pulled out last Friday. We all recognize that, and it makes it difficult for everybody. And it makes it even more difficult that the RDIC has not had a chance to meet, who are basically the governing body that gives the HPDD its direction. We have not had an opportunity to meet, and I did everything I could to do it before this meeting, but couldn't get it done. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll leave it this way with you. I would expect, beyond a reasonable doubt, that by 6 o'clock tomorrow night, the RDIC will have some direction on where they think this project, where and how this project should proceed. So with that said, I don't know whether you can schedule a meeting, a week from tonight and deal with whatever we decide. I leave that to you folks.
Okay, Peter. So, I think, going forward here, I think you kind of got the general opinion of where the town's coming from, this board's coming from, and where the RDIC may be going. I know Mike wasn't speaking for the RDIC, but just in general, where they're going to take their discussions. Again, we're a review board. We're not really the planning type portion of this thing. So try not to overstep our bounds also, but just still want to keep you going in the right direction, Peter. I think at this point too, let's we can talk about when the next time a meeting should come about. Peter, I don't know how much time you'd need to kind of think about a concept plan that, you know, you talked about some options for that lower level lot one, zone, zone C. How much time would it take you to put some of those concepts together?
I think we probably would need an opportunity to get some, have some time to talk amongst ourselves, and then probably run some stuff by the RDIC itself.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would imagine it's going to take us at least 2 to 3 weeks to do that.
Okay. All right. And then, okay, so possibly if we were to set up a meeting within 4 weeks from now, you think that certainly sounds like it would give you time to get things together?
I think so, yes.
Okay. All right. To all the board members, how does that sound? Is 4 weeks from tonight, that would put us at,
April 7th.
thank you, April 7th. How does that look for everybody?
At the moment, fine.
Yep.
I'm good. Michelle?
I'm good with that date.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair, if I
Can I
could on
comment?
that.
One
So,
comment?
On the
Hold on.
April 7th, excuse me, on the April 7th, I have the Town Center Forum. It's part of the Town Center Study Meeting. However, I don't want to hold up that meeting. I'll make sure that you and I have a conversation beforehand just to connect and see if there's anything on the town side.
Oh my gosh. I'm off. I want to be with Dave on that one.
Okay. How about the
Mr. Chairman, if I could I suggest we set up another meeting for maybe March 31st,
Sure.
which is 3 weeks from tonight?
Yeah, if you're a game for that, I'm open on that day as well. How's everybody else?
Good.
Dave, does that work? No other town things for you guys?
We have an appearance before the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission where we're proposing a grant project. However, once again, I don't want to stand in the way of a continuance. If you and I need to talk beforehand, then that would be fine too.
Okay. All right,
So I
Dick, you good for
apologize for
the,
that, but we're trying to carry out a planning program in town here as well, so.
well, that is your job too, by the way, right?
I have one comment. I just
Go ahead, Jim.
briefly, I just wanted to review the number of units on what we've been discussing tonight and just have Peter Campobasso agree or comment whether I'm accurate. The original proposal was 22 units down by the road plus 66 units elsewhere, total of 88.
That's
And
correct.
the proposal tonight is 22 units down by the road and 120 units, 60 buildings up on top, which is more or less just a layout of what it's possible to put up there in that space. But so it's a total of 142 units. So 22 down below plus 120, 60 buildings on top. That's correct? That's what the plan shows?
Correct. That's what the revised concept plan shows, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I disagree with that, gentlemen. When you look at the plan, the lower area, what you call lot one, has units U1 through U22. And then when you go up to the upper area, it starts at U23 and continues to U126. So there's a total of 126 between both. So that would be 4 on the hill and 22 down below. That's what I see.
Well, but while I was listening to people, I was counting, and there's 60 buildings there on the left. There's 60 buildings. Whatever the numbers say, I can't read the numbers, but I can count the buildings. I've done it
Chair,
twice.
I agree. There are 60 buildings up top.
Thank you. And to get back to what I originally said, and I think this is consistent with what Peter said, that's that's more or less a maximum number that you can fit up there, and it's subject to a lot of things. They haven't done a lot of engineering on this. They haven't really looked at this. This is a just put together for tonight's meeting without a lot of development, so.
Correct, Jim. We just got this meeting. Yeah, and so I think, so I'm agreeing with you now, changing my opinion. They've double marked these units. If you look at the top, you'll see U26, U26, U30. There's two U32s. The 20s and 30s are double down. Yeah. Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, may I just ask a question of Peter Campobasso? Since the original plan was 88 units, then it had to be determined by the applicant that this was a viable project at that size. So I'm suggesting that that should be the kind of denominator of where you start. And if you want to come back and say, okay, it was 88 and, you know, we can fit whatever, pick the number above that, and here's how we can do it, then that's a discussion that we can have between you and the RDIC. But contractually, we've agreed that 88 units is what the project is, and anything beyond that we got to talk about. Is that a fair statement?
I understand what you're getting to. I think the original proposal was for 88 units, yes, a minimum of 88 units is the way I recall it being worded. So we've been working off the notion that we need to get up there at least as a minimum 88 units. If we could get more, I think we would be able to figure that out once we got into some of the actual hard engineering. I did not want to proceed with a concept plan that showed 88 units and then start getting into drawing a formal site plan and come back to the board with something that showed 120 or 130 units. I think what we have to keep in mind is the original proposal was strictly for 88 residential units. No separate clubhouse, no separate building or anything along those lines. So we hear what we think is important to the town, and obviously there needs to be some other amenities that are incorporated into this proposal. Knowing that, I think the only way we can continue to make sure that the project remains viable is to have the ability to know that we can have some extra units to promote some of the, to cover some of the other necessary expenses to do this type of a development. So I think it's good, the discussion we've had tonight. Mike, you've been, very supportive and very helpful. It's very much appreciated. Yes, we want to stay focused on the 88 as well. But if we need to have some room for expansion, I'd rather show it now so we can keep the discussions going forward about, okay, now let's see if we can incorporate a clubhouse, or let's see if we can do some other type of use that might be allowed, under the town's bylaw within the district, that might complement the senior housing. So I think this is a good start.
Okay.
Thanks, Peter. And I agree.
Chris, could I just follow up for 1 second? Sorry. So Peter, I appreciate that, but the one thing that I think we all have to be cognizant of is, this is going to be a private enterprise with an HOA that's going to control it. And in my opinion, my personal opinion, and I keep saying that because I'm concerned that anybody perceives me as speaking as the RDIC chair right now. I want to say it again, I'm not. But my personal concern is, let's just assume you build a, whatever you want to call it, a community center. That's going to be controlled and managed and basically paid for by the HOA. There really legally is no incentive or advantage to the town for that that community center to be there. The advantage is for the residents. Now, maybe, in the end, there's a way that the HOA says, hey, we'll allow the town to use it or whatever, but legally, there's no way for that to happen. So I hear what you're saying, about the additional expense of, you have to be able to try to cover the cost of that expense. But I'm sure, and I know Laurel and I have had this discussion, I don't know of a senior housing project that I'm aware of in the Holden, Worcester area that is of any significant size that doesn't have some sort of a community center for its residents. Not, so that I guess what I'm saying is I don't see the benefit necessarily to the town. Ultimately, there may be a way to do that, but it's going to be owned by the HOA, managed by the HOA, and the town will, basically have to step back and allow take whatever the HOA allows. So, sorry, I don't want to belabor the point, but I think you understand my point.
I do, and I totally understand, and I appreciate what you're saying. Yes.
Okay.
And real briefly, Mike, there's multiple ways a building like that can help the town. And just because it doesn't add direct value to other people in the town, by making this property, a higher level of a property, that benefits the town. If having that community building in this increases the value of these properties, and that tax revenue is a benefit to this town, the increased value. So there's other ways that something like that, even though it's not a public building, it can still enhance the value to a town. I think going forward here, though, just want to move along forward here, that there's really, I kind of, Attorney Campabasso is talking about, the quantity of units. It's a fluid thing right now, everybody. The amount of units he needs up on that upper level lot 2, it's fluid. And I totally understand that right now. The other dynamic here is, whether he shaves 10 or 15 or 20 off of this, what else are you going to do with that lot? And what is the purpose of not having that lot built out with, if this is something they feel is viable, and they can sell these units, and to me, it's like you either cut this thing down to 40 units and stick them in half this property so that you can do something else with the other half, or you just give him the whole lot and let him do what he wants with it to a degree. Okay, I'm not just saying let the guy run wild here, but I'm just saying, I don't want to get everybody get hung up on the quantity of units up there. It's more of the use of the lot. And I think that's something we got to kind of stay focused with, that, just to reduce the quantity of lots just because we want to, or we don't feel there should be that many up there. But what else are you going to do with the property? So I'd like the applicant to come back, look at this from 2 perspectives. What's he going to do in lot 1? He's talked about some other ideas they may have for lot 1. Let's see that as one type of plan. And then let's see what he can do up on lot 2. Let him come back to the table here in 3 weeks. Let's see his new ideas. Let's see what else he can do. I think he's heard everything from the town. We want to keep the 55 up on the hill, and we'd like to see some type of community building associated with that. Let's see what they can do.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yeah.
I keep interjecting here. I'm gonna say to the group that I will be very, very surprised if by the end of our meeting tomorrow, the RDIC doesn't have a pretty firm direction that we can give to HCH on whether we think it's appropriate to use parcel 1, 2, 3, or whatever. So I think what I'm telling you is, at the end of the night tomorrow, at the end of our meeting, I would expect that we're going to come away and be able to say, this is what we would like you to do. So if that's of any help to you or the applicant, I'll leave that where it is.
Yeah, no, Mike, I mean, in all honesty, yeah, absolutely. That's the purpose of your board, to give these guys, that I don't want to say that should have already been done, but absolutely, that direction and guidance really comes from your board. We're a review board. That's really shouldn't be kind of coming from us, but I have no issue with that. I'm sure, Attorney Campabasso is going to, take your feedback, and let's see what they can come up with. I just want to caution, when you do have your board meeting, let's hear their ideas for the other lot 1. I mean, before if he's got some type of retail thing or something like that they want to do there, that accents and helps his 55 and over up on the hill, you know, I'd like to hear it personally. I just, you know, I don't see why we shouldn't listen to what they want to do. Not saying that's letting them do it, but again, that's your board. I'll let you guys do what you want to do tomorrow night.
All right, so Chris, just before you run away, so how would you like for me to communicate this? I would expect on Friday morning, I will have some direction. I can communicate directly with you, Chris, but from the standpoint of the IDIC, you know, to update the HPD review board, who at HCH should I be communicating what the results of our meeting is?
I would just send it to Tamika, if you could, if you don't mind, and she can distribute it to the entire, you know, review board. Is that
No,
okay?
okay, but Peter, should I should I get with you
Okay.
on it, or Laurel, or?
If it's okay, Mike, you can contact me. That would be fine.
Okay, perfect. All right, so you can expect, I will communicate with Tamika and you on Friday morning.
Thank you.
And Mike, feel free to reach out to me if there's any questions or anything specific, but you're just going to issue a memo or give us some kind of direction.
Correct.
Just-
I would expect we will have a vote and I will put it in writing.
Okay, but yeah,
Chris,
yeah.
I've been sitting there listening for the last two meetings, and I listened to the last meeting where there was some discussion about residential housing going next to an existing business and all the noise and everything. And I'm struggling with that because those houses have been around that business for decades, if not half a century. So I'm confused of why all of a sudden putting houses there is going to be a problem with homeowners. So that's just my take for Peter of, you know, I don't see an issue with lot one being used for as a citizen for senior housing. That's just my comment.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, I echoed that prior. I think it's a good spot for it personally. There's houses all around the Bill's gas station, across the street and behind it. But again, be careful what you wish for, because if some type of, you know, large industrial building did go there, or a retail thing that was open late at night with lights on, it might be a little more evasive than just having a two-family on the backside.
Correct, Chris.
Yes, jump tank, Franz?
Yeah, I just want to agree with Tim and with you, and remind that there are houses across the street, across from Sitco, and I've never heard, and I've been here close to 40 years, I've never heard any major problems or complaints. So I think they would be lucky to have a development, especially from Harbor, and I don't see any issues with Zone C or what you call Lot 1. So I agree with Tim and you on that as a citizen.
But understood. But again, you know, them consuming all the upper lot and that lot, you know, it does raise the question that we're losing valuable town land for potential town purposes. You know, Dick Williams did suggest about, you know, where do we build, you know, new town buildings, post office, town hall type of thing. And then any other town needs. So we, you know, I think there's got to be a limit. But again, this is not this reviews board. I think we're overstepping our bounds here. You know, we are here to review what the RDIC in this applicant, you know, negotiates. And I feel like that hasn't really been figured out yet. We're kind of stuck in that gear here. But I think we've heard both sides. I think at this point here, I want to just open up the public discussion. If there's anybody on the public that wants to say anything, I'd like to hear their comment right now. Peter, if anybody has anything, raise their hand or whatever.
There are no raised hands.
All right. Does anybody else have any other comments regarding anything tonight?
The next meeting will be at 6.
Correct. The next meeting will be at 6 on the 31st of March.
Okay.
So would I make a motion to continue the meeting again?
Continue the hearing.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
So continue, so I'll make the motion to continue the hearing to March 31st at 6 p.m.
And I'll second that.
Thanks, Dick. Any discussion? Okay, let's take a vote. Any, all in favor of continuing to March 31st at 6 p.m.? Personical, aye?
Burrington, yes.
Dick
Van
Williams,
Reed,
aye.
yes.
Okay. All right, that's unanimous. Doug, again, is not present. Okay, so any other discussions on anything else as far as what we've talked about from anybody else? Any other comments?
I will, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
first
sir.
of all, I do appreciate everyone's time. I appreciate the feedback from the board members, from Mike Sullivan. I will follow up with David George tomorrow, just to sort of make sure that we understand where we're going from here. And I'll keep him and Mike abreast of how we continue to revise the concept plan. And as soon as we have something available, we'll do our best to try to get it to you in enough in advance where you have some time to digest it. Okay?
Be appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Mr.
thank you
Chairman?
very much.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to again thank you for allowing me to speak as a taxpayer, not as a member of the RDIC. I want to make that crystal clear again.
I'm sure that's been duly noted in the meeting.
Well, you,
Tamika, did you get that?
I didn't. Mike, can you say it one more time? No, I'm just kidding.
you're going to pay for that, Tamika.
Okay. All right, Peter, I hope we've given you some guidance on where to go. That's great. I think it's, this is definitely a fluid thing. A lot of things to consider, but I want to thank everybody for all their input tonight. I think it's very good. We're working our way, guys. It's a whole new road here, but we'll get there. We can, that's for sure. If anybody doesn't have anything else, I'm just going to close this part of the meeting and we'll move on to any new or old business items, and then we can adjourn the meeting. Any other comments?
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank
Peter. Have a
you.
good night.
Thanks.
All right, so at 7:19, I'd like to close the public hearing for the Harbor Classic Homes. And-
We're not. We're not closing the hearing.
I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to close our meeting, but the hearing is
Close
continued.
this portion of our, of.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then open up any new old business, any other discussion the board wants to talk about?
I'll keep my mouth shut. Have a good evening.
All right, Dick. All right,
So do we need a motion to close our meeting then?
we
No,
do.
or
need
did
a
we
motion.
just
We just need
continue
a, nope, you continued the hearing. Now we just need a motion to adjourn.
Well, I'll make the motion to adjourn then.
Second.
Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Van
Aye.
Reed, yes.
Tim
Somebody
Williams,
else?
aye.
All right, Doug's not present. All right, so that's
All
that.
right, thank you.